recording. Okay, thank you everyone for coming. We are discussing today the Yontif of Shavuos. Yontif of Shavuos is a very important Yontif for me. Not like other Yom Tovim, because like the Yontif of Pesach, in the Yontif of Pesach, we are commemorating something that happened in the past. Like here's present, happens in the past. So the going out of Mitzrayim is something that only happened one time. It happened a long time ago, and we celebrate and we commemorate that with the Yontif of Pesach. And that's a great opportunity because there's a tremendous thing that happened at that point in Jewish history, and we have to connect to that period. Now, Shavuos, the Midrashim bring down, is a little bit different. Shavuos was built into the fabric of reality, and we're going to discuss a little bit how that works in the next few hours. You see, what happened, it was a great plan. The shiur, Rabbi Koff told me it was going to be an Iyun shiur, so I prepared a nice 25-minute shiur, and everyone was going to learn the Y'mei Iyun for like 40 minutes, and I'll speak for like 15, 20 minutes. It was going to be great. Like everyone would gain, but then he's like, no, we're not pretending anymore. So now Rabbi Koff has to do all the work and teach you all the stuff that you don't know, which I'm willing to do because I'm a big tzaddik. But now, so the Yontif of Shavuos is built into, the Medrash brings down, is the year. There's we believe that the years work in a spiral with koyches coming down through the world. And the Yontif of Shavuos, the Kabbalah Torah that we're going to have for the entire year is going to happen this week. And especially in the 3 days before, the Shlosh Sinei Kabbalah, which is the 3 days that we prepared in order to get ready for Shavuos, also happened. So, the title of the shiur was Living in the Shadow of the Mountain. Some of you may know what we're referring to, but this is going to be number 4 in the source sheet. So we're going to start again from source number 1 in the source sheet that no one of you will ever see. Okay, so number 1, the Gemara says that they left the deserts of Rephidim, and then the pasuk says that they came into the midbar of Sinai. Now, Rephidim is a great place. That's where I live, Mavo Rephidim, because in Israel, unlike America, we name our places based on Tanakh. So in Ramat Eshkol, the streets are named after the stops that Klal Yisrael did in the midbar. For example, there's Yatvata, and then there's Livna, there's Mishmar Gvul, which has nothing to do with the Torah. Then but one of them is Rephidim. That's where I live, before Rephidim. Klal Yisrael left Rephidim, and they went into the midbar Sinai. So the Gemara says, why did this pasuk repeat it? Just like they left Rephidim with tshuva, so too they came into midbar Sinai with tshuva, which is interesting because why is Klal Yisrael doing tshuva? Okay, so this is going to be the first question that we had today. Why is Klal Yisrael leaving Rephidim with tshuva? So the Gemara says that there was a weakening in their Torah. There was a lessening in their understanding of what the Torah was supposed to be. Okay, what does that mean? So let's explain. There was a story that happened. Many of you know, Klal Yisrael, we spoke about it a little bit 5 minutes ago. Klal Yisrael left Mitzrayim. It was a very big thing. Now, we discussed this a little bit in the Y'mei Iyun. We discussed it a few times in the Parsha shiur. Leaving Mitzrayim was a big deal because there was a tremendous Gilui Shechina. Gilui Shechina is like a big thing. We don't have so much Gilui Shechina in our lives because unless like you're living in the world that we live in, you know, like you hear about like in certain parts of the world where like the world's being destroyed currently, and then like your certain parts come to Eretz Yisrael, it's like amazing. Where like, you know, it's like, oh wow, my kids just went to school, Baruch Hashem, today. It was very nice for the first time. But okay, listen, hopefully we'll continue. But there's Gilui Shechina a little bit. If you look around, we can see a little bit of Gilui Shechina. But in Mitzrayim, there was even bigger Gilui Shechina. Many times, some of you might know, there was, at the end of Mitzrayim, there was something called Makas B'charis. The Makas B'charis was big because, like, if we read in the Haggadah, we discuss HaKadosh Baruch Hu came down, like from Shemayim, and he killed all the B'charis of Mitzrayim. That was like, boom, they're all dead. And that HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself did that. That was like big Gilui Shechina. Now, what happens is, the more Gilui Shechina you have, the less you are in the world. And the less you're in the world, the more you're outside of the world. And the more you're outside of the world, the more you could recognize HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So therefore, the more, right, this is a direct correlation. The more ruchnias you have, the less more ruchni, the less gashmi. It usually goes hand in hand, right? For example, someone once went to Steinman, and they were Rabbi Yashin, and they asked him what bracha to make on a schnitzel. So he didn't know what a schnitzel was. So he said, how could you not know what a schnitzel is? Like, I don't know what a schnitzel is. So that was interesting that he did not know what, because he it wasn't important to him. Even though he'd eaten the schnitzel many times, he didn't know that it was called the schnitzel because he wasn't connecting to the gashmi. So Rabbi Steinman used to, Yashiv used to eat in a week what we would eat in a day, and he would learn in a day what we would learn in like 2 years. Right? It's because the more ruchni you have, the less gashmi you feel like you need, and therefore vice versa. There are people who could keep them both high, but usually if you cut yourself off a bit, right? Everyone you knows, as you're learning with your chavrusas, some of you will understand that when a lot of you have chavrusas in the morning, so if you're on the phone during Seder, the more gashmi you are, the harder it is to learn. I'm not saying it can't be done, right? You could do it. I could listen to people while I'm playing on my phone. You could do it. It's just much harder. Because usually if you just put your phone like on the bed, or if you put the phone, even in your pocket, if you just don't play on it, like you could see the learning goes way up. Like many of you are smiling because you know what I'm talking about. Some of you, okay, whatever. Some of you probably don't. A smartphone is like things that people have. Okay. So then after Makas B'chayis, which was a big deal, then we got to Kriyas Yamsuf. And if you go through that, the Kriyas Yamsuf is like even bigger than HaKadosh Baruch Hu coming down himself. It's like Nevuah came into Klal Yisrael. Klal Yisrael got big. But you see, and Klal Yisrael hit these highest levels. And what happened after that? After they hit these levels, they fell. They fell a little bit because they didn't appreciate what a relationship was going to be with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And some of you know the story. After that, Amalek came in. Amalek came in and said, you don't recognize what you are. You don't recognize where you're being. You don't appreciate your connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Let me wake you guys up. And there was a big war. And if you know, the way they won the war was not through physical means. It wasn't like they had a drone strike while it might have been useful. What they did was they had a very secret weapon. Moshe Rabbeinu picked up his hands. And it wasn't like a dance party, raise the roof. Not the point. Right? And Moshe Rabbeinu raised his hands, and Klal Yisrael recognized that we're connected to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and the more Gashmi, then the less Ruchni, so the less power that Amalek had, and that's how we won the war. And that was the also biggest service. Okay. Good. So Klal Yisrael's on this like really big high, right? And what happens? So then they get to Har Sinai. And then the Gemaras get very interesting. Gemara says, Klal Yisrael came around Har Sinai, and the Gemara in Shabbos says, we have that famous story. Kadosh Baruch Hu comes down to Klal Yisrael and he says, guys, you heard about my Torah? I've been going around offering it to all the nations. You guys want it? So first he went to Yishmael. He's like, Yishmael, you want the Torah? Yishmael's like, nah, what does it say? So he's like, it says you can't kidnap. You can't murder. He's like, no. Murdering is like our thing, like, I can't not murder. That's not going to work. I can't not. Yishmael was stealing. Yishmael is like, don't steal. So he's like, Yishmael's like, no, we got to steal. So then they go to Edom. Like, Edom, you want the Torah? He's like, what's written in it? Edom's like, we got to murder. He's like, no, we're addicted to murder. Every Tuesday we murder somebody. If we have the Torah, we're not going to be able to go out and murder. It's like, okay, fine, we'll skip the Torah. So they go to Klal Yisrael. It's like, Klal Yisrael, you want the Torah? Klal Yisrael's like, what'd you say? I'm sorry, I was on my phone. No, Klal Yisrael's like, Naaseh v'nishma. Right? First, we accept, we want the relationship with you, and then tell us about what it is. And Kadosh Baruch Hu is like, whoa, this is like a big thing. The Medrash says that Hashem's like, who told him this secret? Who says the secret that only Malachim know? That the key is you have to accept upon yourself to do the Torah, and only after that is it important to go. And therefore, Kadosh Baruch Hu sent down these Malachim. It was like a big thing. We got 2 crowns, the Medrash says. The crown of Naaseh v'nishma. And that's why we got the Torah. And that's what we celebrate on Shavuos, the Kabbalah HaTorah, right? The key is not that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave the Torah, which is also a big thing that we do, but the key is Kabbalah HaTorah. We accept upon ourselves the Torah, because that's the key that we're going to aim in the shiur. Okay, so that's great. Now it would be a very great story to tell our children, how we did not wait to hear what was in the Torah. We just accepted the Torah. Then the Gemara goes a little bit sideways. The Gemara says, and this was source Hay in the source sheet that no one's ever going to see. So the Gemara says that the Gemara brings down that Vayichad B'tachar, I'll translate into English, they stood on the bottom of Har Sinai, as the pasuk quoted in Shemais, Perek Chof, pasuk Yud Zayin, and Rabdimi ben Chasa, triple name, he says, what does it mean that they stood on the bottom of the mountain? HaKadosh Baruch Hu picked, what does it mean on the bottom of the mountain? Should be like next to the mountain. Why on the bottom? HaKadosh Baruch Hu picked up Har Sinai. He flips it upside down like a beer bottle. a beer barrel, which is very important because that beer is a very important part of Kabbalah Torah. We'll discuss that at a different point, not today. But Akash Baruch Hu held it like a beer barrel, and Akash Baruch Hu says, if you accept the Torah, great. If not, here's where you're going to be buried. I'm just going to drop the mountain, and then easy, cheap burial system. So that is odd, to put it politely, because the Achrayim and the Rishonim and the Gemaras all bring down that this concept of Nasa Nishma is huge. It's like a big schus that we have in the world. Like a Kodesh Baruch Hu, it's like, you're like my malachim, and it's one of the reasons why Kodesh Baruch Hu is Moichel Avaynos. It's a big thing. Now, it's a slightly different story if a Kodesh Baruch Hu has a mountain over our heads, and he's like, yo, accept the Torah, great, we're going to be passed. And if you don't accept it, So it's kind of like interesting, you know. Let's say me and you make a deal. And I tell you, you got to sign this contract. And you're like, I'm going to sign the contract with you, no problem. I said, I'm going to do it. And I'll be like, I got my bazooka. I'll be like, I signed the contract. So we got two distinct issues. Right now, normally in this point, I would be like, could someone like say the issues? But it's on Zoom, so none of you can say anything. So again, this I guess laughs. I'll be like, Rabbi Koff, that sounds good. So what are the two problems with this? So I'd answer, Rabbi Koff, that's an excellent question. Good job. So the two problems with this story is, number one, Klal Yisrael already had agreed to accept the Torah. If Klal Yisrael had already agreed to accept the Torah, what was the need to Kavlei Markiyigas? Good. Number two, this is a little bit negative, right? Because if HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted us to accept the Torah, then why is he threatening us? And if he wanted someone else to accept the Torah, like we have the whole story of that we spoke about with the Adoimis and the Y'mei Iyun, where HaKadosh Baruch Hu could have been like Kavlei Haragigas, and then they probably would have said, okay, let's stick with it. Okay, this is our question. Why does HaKadosh Baruch Hu have to put a mountain on our heads? So the answer, of course, is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu even back then appreciated the hat and jacket. That's the point of the shiur, that he wanted to put a hat, the mountain was like a black hat on the head. He couldn't accept it the first time by Nasa Nishma. No, I'm just kidding. But that would have been interesting. Come on, bro, that's a good joke. Okay, Bill didn't appreciate it. But so the Mefarshim jump out. The Mefarshim say right there, like one of the big Mefarshim in the sugya would be source number 6 on the imaginary short sheet. Taisus brings down on the Alman. Taisus says, why did HaKadosh Baruch Hu to have to force Klal Yisrael? Hooray, they already accepted the Torah. Yeah, good question. So that's an interesting question, which is the two Gemaras bring down that there was a Nasa Nishma and there was Kavlei Haragigas. Which one came first? So Taisus takes it as a given that Taisus not bothered by the negative aspects of this. Taisus is bothered by the practical aspects of this. Why do we have to have a Kabbalah Torah if Kavlei Haragigas, if we already accepted the Torah? That's a good question. That's a very technical question. Taisus is very good with that, picking up the technical problems. So Taisus says a very important fundamental concept. And Taisus says that we were concerned that when the Torah was given in Har Sinai, it's going to be a beautiful thing. However, it's also going to be a very intense thing. If you look at the story, when you're going to start Rosh Hashanah, there's going to be Kodesh Uvrakim. There's going to be like, if you guys remember, some of you may know, but when we first got the first Zayis Adibris, like everybody died. Like that was like, everybody's dead. And then Kodesh Baruch Hu brought them into life. And then he's like, and then that was harsh. Like people don't like dying. It's very, 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 very uncomfortable thing that people don't like. So, and then there's like flashes and lightning and thundering, because that's how the Torah comes into the world, with a bang. Get it? Because there's like thundering and lightning, bang. Quality humor right here, wasted on quiet Zoomness. Okay. Where are we? Oh, so Taisus was worried about that Klal Yisrael is going to regret accepting the Torah. They're going to back out and they're going to say, we can't handle it. Taisus then continues and says that they're something a little bit, the same concept in different ways, that the fire of Mount Tyre would scare them off. And the Farshim explain what does Taisus mean. He says that everybody loves the kumbaya in the Torah, right? Everyone loves the doing of Shabbos. Many people love the Zmiras. People love putting on tefillin. Like anytime we have like a feel good, if you give me a 24-hour Hatzalah, everybody's going to donate $1 because you got a free letter in the Sefer Torah. That's great when you have that. But on the other hand, there's a flip side, right? Anytime you're going to have a situation where you have a way to get close to Kadosh Baruch Hu, then there also has to be the flip side of the cheshbon, that if I don't use that opportunity, then there has to be a consequence. The Baal Moshe explained that this is part and parcel, that something only becomes worthwhile only has the ability to bring you closer, right? You can't have a possibility where I could only gain. Anytime we have a possibility of only gaining is when I have a possibility of going up, right? Life is consistently a battle of nisyonis, where either I'm going up in the nisyonis or I'm going down in the nisyonis. So therefore, there must be a flip side of Matan Torah, whereas if I accept the Torah and I do the mitzvahs, then I live the best life possible. But then if I don't do that, then what happens? Then I get punished. So that's scary. So when Kadosh Baruch Hu was like, I love the Torah, and Klal Yisrael is enthralled by the fact that we can have a direct relationship with the Kadosh Baruch Hu, Melech Malchei Avlochem Kadosh Baruch Hu, we're in. Na'aseh v'nishma, tell me what it is. And then we get the details, fire and burning. It's like, ooh, that's. I don't know about that. I like the Shabbatos, but the in Shabbosim are like, can we just not keep those? I'll keep Shabbos on the Shabbatos. That's like when I'm in Tzvat, like that's great. I'll definitely go to Karbach Shul. But in Shabbos and Telstone, it's very hard. It's a long Shabbos. It's quite boring. I know they have these things called Sidarim, like where I'm supposed to learn, but even just keeping Shabbos is hard. So that's what he said, which is a nice pshat, right? This is a very basic pshat. It does have perhaps what we call an FDF, which some of you may know. It's a fatal flaw or a fundamental flaw, which is that Taisus understood that this was a valid taina, which is cool. Now Taisus seems to say that if Klal Yisrael come in and say, we regret that, so then they have the ability to come back. And that would have been a great shiur that I could have given in Iyun shiur about Dvarim, because Klal Yisrael said Na'aseh v'nishma, right? So they would have accepted it. Maybe one year we'll be able to give the shiur. And that's the sugya of Dvarim Shebelev. The Klal Yisrael would be able to taina. We didn't really accept it. And that was like source number 8 and 9 and 10. It would have been like very intense Iyun. Beautiful. I'm so sorry that you guys don't get to hear it. But don't worry, we'll continue. Anyway, but Taisus does seem to say that there's an ability that Klal Yisrael could have came in and said, we don't want it. Okay, but the Maral, he brings down a more fundamental issue with this whole shebang. Maral says, he's like, that's great. But the Maral says, perhaps as we pointed out earlier, that the schus of Na'aseh v'nishma is brought down in the Sfarim as being something that exists till this very day. That our relationship to Kadosh Baruch Hu is based on Na'aseh v'nishma. So Zak the Maral, that's odd that Na'aseh v'nishma was so weak that we would have backed out. Yet it's such a big schus, the one that Kadosh Baruch Hu had to force us then to reinforce, right? That's not so geschmack to say that the big schus is the Na'aseh v'nishma that we would have dropped one day later. All right, everyone understand the problem? If Na'aseh v'nishma is so weak that Klal Yisrael is going to back out as soon as it gets real, so then that's not such a great schus, right? Because we're going to back out. So that's not a good pshat. Okay. So that would be the first answer, the idea of Taisus. Where Taisus says that the intensity of punishment and the intensity of what the Torah is, when Torah moves from something theoretical into something real, that's something which Klal Yisrael would have scared off. And for that, we need Kavalei Margigas, which is perhaps moving into, we're going to get back to the Maral, right? I say this a lot. That's a very good question. But like in a cooking show, we're taking those onions, we're going to move it on the side. We're going to deal with Taisus for a few more seconds. Just because, before Shavuos, we have to appreciate Taisus. which is that the situation that we have to understand from Taisvis is that at the end of the day, HaKadosh Baruch Hu did force us to accept the Torah, right? And that's an important thing to know, that the fact that that it's scary and that it's a little bit difficult is not a great excuse. It's very emotionally there, it sounds good. It's hard, every one of you know that the situation that we're going through right now is a little bit difficult. Some of you are going to be able to go to shul maybe, but many of you are not going to be able to go to shul. So you'll have a question: Am I going to learn? How am I going to learn on Shavuos? When am I going to learn on Shavuos? Some of you may stay up all night, some of you may not stay up all night, but it's certainly going to be much more difficult than it's been throughout the year. Any limud Torah Shavuos, and it's very important to just understand that nothing that we do that's easy is going to be worthwhile. Right? Tais points out anything that has a potential to be good also has a potentiality to miss out on the consequence. So the fact that this year is going to be much more difficult means that if you succeed, it will be much more sweet, right? It's an equal thing. You think, it's very, very difficult, but it's also not going to be enjoyable. The world is always going to be balanced. And if you succeed in having a Shavuos where we have limud Torah, where you do grow, where you do something, the sweetness that you should feel should be real, because it is balanced. It's only if you convince yourself that it's not, that it won't be. But if you push yourself, then you will gain in a way that you never could have gained previously, because that's what Taisa says. That the key is to understand that just because it comes scary would have maybe been a good excuse. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu added in, but you got to do what you got to do, because the relationship is real. Many of you came in the beginning of the year when they came to yeshiva. We spoke to a lot of guys about it. It's very hard. It's a long seder. It's a schedule that we weren't used to, but yet within a month or two, almost every single one of you, when you got into it, realized that it is a long day. But when I put in a good day at the end of the night seder, I feel like I've done a tremendous amount. You feel a sense of accomplishment like nothing else in the world. And when you work through a sugya, even if you do it only for 5 minutes, you walk away smiling and say, "Oh, I figured that out." Because the fee, how difficult it's going to be, that is what makes the reward possible. And it's something certainly to remember, as this year is going to be definitely more difficult than any other year, simply to keep a focus on a day that, again, as we pointed out at the beginning of this year, Kabbalah Torah is real. The Kabbalah Torah and the connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu exists. It's not like Pesach where we remember what happened. We're not even a zecher to the Kabbalah Torah that we had in the Midbar. We're reliving that the koiches that HaKadosh Baruch Hu sent down are going to be there on Friday. And I'm sure all of you are very planning on making Aliyah, so you probably all should keep one day. Now is the time. Now is the time to make the Kabbalah, and then we can talk about it. We'll get you a good placing. Back to our topic. That was the Shita of Taisus. So the Maral, he brings down a very, very steep, very complex concept. And I feel it's an important concept because I don't think he's going to argue on Taisus, but perhaps he's bringing Taisus in a deeper way to understand our relationship and our connection to the Torah, which is an important thing as we come into Shavuos to understand the relationship with Klal Yisrael the Torah. If you read Taste of Heaven in chapter 7, he brings down a beautiful concept of Kadosh Baruch Hu and Torah, that the zug of Klal Yisrael is the Torah, and that there's a real connection between Klal Yisrael and Torah. So it's back to Maharal, the Kash of Taisus, right? Why did Hashem have to force us to accept the Torah? We already accepted the Torah. We're ready to go. We have that connection. We have that relationship. Why suddenly and now are we dealing with HaKadosh Baruch Hu forcing us to accept the Torah? Zak the Maharal, a beautiful idea. He says that the reason why Klal Yisrael had to force us to accept the Torah was because it's important that Klal Yisrael cannot say, we chose to accept the Torah. Ooh. Whoa, what does that mean? Meaning, if Klal Yisrael, Kadosh Baruch Hu says, Klal Yisrael, you want the Torah? Klal Yisrael is like, yeah, we want the Torah. So then we decided to accept the Torah. This can be understood, needs to be understood in two different ways. Let's take step one. One way that we need to understand this is through this symbol of the Torah. Kadosh Baruch Hu created the world. We discuss this almost every shiur that I give. Kadosh Baruch Hu gives us the world in order to have a place where we can connect to Him. Kadosh Baruch Hu created the world in order to have a place where we can work to accept the Torah. So the reason why the world exists is to have a mechanism of us to keep the Torah. In fact, it would not be distruth to say that the existence of the world only depends on the Torah. And without the Torah, the world would not continue to exist. Right? Now, that's something that many of you may have known or heard that concept. But that's not just a conceptual concept. This is a real concept. Right? The world wouldn't exist by the Torah. So therefore, you can't say we accepted the Torah. Because the Torah has to exist in the world or there's no world. And we're in the world. Right? If there's a possibility of accepting the Torah and not accepting the Torah, that means that the world is not dependent on the Torah. But the world exists only for the Torah. And just like it wasn't our rotzin to create the world, a person doesn't choose to be created, and a person can't choose if the world was created. It wasn't like I woke up on Sunday and said, you know what, the world exists. Like, we don't have the ability to choose to accept the world. So therefore, we can't choose to accept the Torah because the existence of the world is dependent and connected to the existence of the Torah. And that's only by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's Ratzon HaKadosh Baruch Hu creates the Torah. Okay, now that is an incredible deep idea. We'll review it a little bit because we have to understand. You see, HaKadosh Baruch Hu did offer us to accept the Torah. But that choice that we made was not a choice could not be limited to a simple acceptance of the Torah. Because if you're saying that it's choice to accept the Torah and not accept the Torah, that means that there's an ability for us not to accept the Torah. And we don't have that ability to decide whether Torah is true or not. Torah exists as its own reality in the world. If the world exists, Torah exists. Now everybody froze. So does anybody hear me?
Nope. 65 degrees outside.
That's gorgeous.
Oh man, the perfect weather knocked it right out.
Everybody's muted.
That short commercial message was brought to you by Y'mei Iyun. We love Y'mei Iyun. Did you all freeze again? Okay, so I assume we had another 10 seconds till everybody freezes again. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry for that. Again, that commercial message apparently was not brought by his father. It was brought by Vilna Shas Achadar. Okay, anyway, fine.
Yeah.
I don't know where I ended. Let's see what happens. Okay, so we discovered step one, that you can't have a purely voluntary Kabbalas Torah because the Torah itself is chiyus. Second of all, that's just looking at the Torah itself. If the Torah exists as a creation, as an idea that the world needs to have the Torah, then it can't purely be voluntary. That was one concept. But let's, on a simpler level, let's perhaps look at that concept based on basic Klal Yisrael's aspect. Meaning, if HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, do we want to accept the Torah? And we say, yes, we accept the Torah. That means that we, not the Torah has an ability of being truth and not being truth, but then we have the ability to say, we want to accept the Torah. But that's not the way, that's like the Maharal, it's not the truth either. The Torah is not something that we have, or the Torah is something that we are. The Torah is a part of who we are. And therefore, just like just like when, how do we explain this? The Torah is a part and parcel of who we are. Let's give an example, right? There's something called Bechira. Can everyone nod their heads so I know everyone knows what Bechira is? Okay, some of you are not nodding heads. Bechira is something called free will. Bechira is something called, okay, fine. Thank you, everyone. Bechira is choice. It's one of the fundamental aspects of Yiddishkeit. The world was created in order to give us free will. So, but in the idea of free will, that says that we have the ability to choose what we want to do, right? That's what Bechira means. Bechira means I could choose to come to Rabbi Koff's shiur, or Bechira says I could also choose not to come to Rabbi Koff's amazing shiur. Good? That is Bechira. Yet there is no ability to not choose. Yeah? Everyone understand? Bechira doesn't mean I have the option to not choose, because not choosing is built into what we are. I could choose, yeah. I could choose, no. But Bechira doesn't mean I have Bechira not to have Bechira. Bechira is built into reality. So, Zak the Maharal, the Torah is what we are. We could choose to learn Torah. We could choose not to accept Torah. But we can't choose not to be with the Torah, because the Torah is part and parcel of Klal Yisrael. I could choose, right? I could choose to learn Torah. I could choose not to learn Torah. But I can't choose to say I'm not connected to the Torah. Right? Everyone understood that beautiful mashal from Bechira? I'll explain again because it's such a good mashal. And I could choose no, but I can't choose not to choose. And that Bechira is a very key point of what we're celebrating coming on Shavuos. We're not celebrating the choosing. That was a good thing that we love to happen. It's good to have the ability to choose to get close to God. But we celebrate on Shavuos not our acceptance of the Torah, but the acknowledgement that Torah is not something that we do, but Torah is something who we are. Klal Yisrael's relationship to the Torah is not like your relationship that you have with anything else in the world. Anything else in the world, we could choose. So I want to do it, then I want to do it. But if you're going to be when we're a member of Klal Yisrael, the Torah, our whole world revolves around the Torah, because we are Torah. Torah is not a part of my life. Torah is my life. Right? I always say, on a day when you don't learn Torah is a day when you're not happy. You won't believe it. You probably won't even notice it. But, if you go to sleep and say, today was a really bad day, you probably didn't learn really. If you learn for even 30 to 40 minutes, you won't go and say, wow, today was really bad, because you'll always have, well, that 30, 40 minutes is okay. I don't mean staring at a Gemara. I mean, you have to learn Torah, right? You have to actually, learning Torah is a hard thing to do, right? You could probably have a good Chavrusa shah for 2, 3, 4, 5 Zoom hours and learn for, I don't know, not learn at all. But and that was also good learning. But you also have to, it's about working into the heart. Mm-hmm. The truth is, when people tell me that it's so hard to learn for a Seder, so usually it means that they didn't start and get into it. What happens, the hardest part is usually to get started, right? Because it's hard, because it's difficult. It's something that's not so easy. But once you get into it, once you start thinking, once you start working out the svaras, most times when people ask me questions, what I'll just do is I'll ask them a question of the Rishon. And then if they're interested in it, then they'll be arguing back and forth. And once you're arguing the svaras, everyone likes to argue the svaras. And that's key. That's learning Torah. When you're trying to get a clarity of the idea. Klal Yisrael said, Na'aseh v'nishma. Klal Yisrael said, we're going to accept the Torah. So why are they going to back out? It's like, tomorrow they're never going to back out. Klal Yisrael wasn't going to back out. It wasn't that Klal Yisrael had the ability to back out. But the Torah had to be compulsory. It was part and parcel of what the Torah was. Klal Yisrael's Kabbalah is a Torah of Na'aseh v'nishma. The Kabbalah had to be the Kabbalah that is not free will. The Kabbalah had to be the part and parcel that my connection to the Torah is something that's part and parcel of who I am. Klal Yisrael had to have the inherently in Torah is the fact that it has to be forced upon you. If the Torah is optional, that would be a different world. HaKadosh Baruch Hu said the foundation is to know that this is not up to you. The foundation is to know that this is not dependent on you. Now that you accept it, that's how we're gonna put gas on. Now we're gonna start knocking. Now that you feel and you appreciate what's going on, that's gonna take you to a whole different level. But know that if you think that it's only because you chose to do it, it's gonna be weak. And that's perhaps also an important lesson as we come into Shavuos, which is, you could choose to learn, but if you understand that I need to learn and then choose to learn, that will take your learning to a different level. You have to say, I need to know that I'm going to go learn Torah, and then, which is a very difficult thing to do, right? Because nobody's going to force you to do it, right? We're entering into a 2-day Yontif, including Shabbos. There's going to be a lot of Sudas, a lot of time sleeping, and no one's going to force you to do anything, right? Because most of you guys are adults, so nobody really cares, except for me. I care. Come on, guys, do it. But the truth is, even though you don't have to do it, you still have to do it because it's built into who you are. You don't feel the need, but understand that it's not. It's not that you're going to choose to not learn. It's not that you're going to choose to not be connected to the Torah. You're choosing not to learn, right? That's the ability. If I'm not learning, don't be like, oh, if I'm reading a book, it's not like I said not to learn. It's just as the book was a really good plot, right? Or that shmooze was a really good shmooze. But that's how you fool yourself. But I'm not choosing not to learn. I love learning, or at least I understand how learning is important. I understand how I can grow. But it's just that I didn't read the kichos. It's just going to be 2 minutes. For you guys who don't know what the kichos are, it's like I'm going to read, I don't know, something else. But realize that you are. And you could still choose not to do something, and you're still a good Jew. But understand that relationship is not something that you're going to choose or you're going to do. It's going to be and that's the key of the foundation of what we have to understand when we're coming into Shavuos. Kodesh Baruch Hu put the mountain over our head in order that we recognize that our relationship to the Torah is something that's built into who we are. We said Na'aseh v'nishma, we weren't going to back out. We understood that this is something good. We understood that it's going to be geschmack. We understood that the kumzitz and the oneg are mamish, what gets me to yeshiva. But know that the 30 minutes later before that was reality. And that you don't have the ability to say, I don't want that. You have the ability to say, I'm not going to do that. But it's still going to be connected to you, right? And the perfect way to understand that is using that muscle of choice, right? I have the ability to choose yes, I have the ability to choose no, but I can't say choosing is not me. I can't say I'm not choosing. Life is about working on that concept. Learning Torah is more than simply living a kosher life. Right? The machlokes, this is a very Iyun dika machshava concept. Maharal is not necessarily pointing out that he's arguing on Taisus, that you see not the ability to back out, but the Maharal is bringing down another concept. That there is no, Maharal is very clear that there is no ability to back out because that's built into who we are. And Taisus does seem to say very clearly that we would have had the ability to back out. But perhaps we should end off with just another approach to this machlokes, besides for the Iyun approach of Dvarim Shebelev and the idea of Kafu. And there is another understanding of what does it mean by Kodesh Baruch Hu is Kaf Leim Har Kegigis. The Meshech Chochmah brings down in Parashas Yisro. He said, what does it mean that Kodesh Baruch Hu put a mountain over our head? That's something that you would think would be like in the Torah, like written down. First we got to Har Sinai, then Moshe Rabbeinu put the gates around the mountain. Then Klal Yisrael, fasted and worked hard for 30 days. Then Kodesh Baruch Hu picked up the mountain and threatened to kill us all. Like that would be like one of the things that like we would learn. Then it's not till the Gemara that brings us down. So the Meshech Chochmah explains. He says, what does it mean that Kodesh Baruch Hu put the mountain over his head? Which is, I would definitely say he's arguing on Taisus' approach, because Taisus does seem to take the approach that this was a direct threat of Klal Yisrael would have been scared of being punished. Meshech Chochmah understands that the Yontif of Shavuos on a very for me, if you're coming into Shavuos, it's a very important idea, which is that Klal Yisrael came to out of Mitzrayim in the only way I would put it, it was embraced by Kodesh Baruch Hu. Right? Kodesh Baruch Hu had Makas B'Chayris, where he revealed himself. We had Kriyas Yamsuf. We had the story of Mara. We had the fight with Amalek. And that Klal Yisrael comes down to Har Sinai. The Kadosh Baruch Hu himself comes down and starts speaking to Klal Yisrael. Meshech Chochmah says at such a point, the experience becomes overwhelming. The evidence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's connection to us just becomes so, I don't even know, the English word is preposterous, I believe. Now, many of you should look up what preposterous means. But the evidence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu becomes so huge that Klal Yisrael doesn't have a choice of accepting the Torah. Klal Yisrael says Na'aseh v'nishma, but behind the Na'aseh v'nishma is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu just split the Yam Suf. HaKadosh Baruch Hu just killed millions of Mitzrayim. Right? We spent the whole year in Goshen with HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, I love you and I care about you and we have a relationship. And then HaKadosh Baruch Hu comes to the bris, he comes to sign the treaty. We didn't have free will. It was just like if we had taken a barrel and put it over our head. Right? I give you an example, right? You have a jury. People know what a jury is? Yeah, you have a jury. You have a court case, and the guy comes in and gives proof, evidence, another evidence, another. We're not talking about circumstantial evidence, real evidence. You know, the jury has no free will whether they're going to find the guy guilty or evidence. The evidence is overwhelming. There's something here. There's something real. Somebody cares about me. Somebody just saved my life. So then HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, accept the Torah? Of course. How can I say no to you? Right? Somebody pulls you, chas v'shalom, a person falls into a river. And someone jumps in and pulls him out. And he's like, listen, you saved my life. I'll do anything for you. He's like, no, I don't need anything. He's like, no, you saved my life. I was drowning. He's like, listen, if you really want to do something, okay, take a little scroll, write down the story how I saved you from the ocean, hang it on your doorpost. And for every time you leave your house, you'll remember that I cared about you and I pulled you out of the ocean. What are you going to be like, nope? I would do anything for you. You want me to put a mezuzah on my door? You want me to write down the story? Right? And HaKadosh Baruch Hu comes in and says, here's the Torah. Here's my most valuable possession. We're like, no. There's no possibility of saying that. Right? The Alter Rebbe, he says that this is that the concept is when HaKadosh Baruch Hu comes in an overwhelming hit, then I don't have the ability to exist. I become non-existent. One of the amazing things that HaKadosh Baruch Hu did for us in Mitzrayim was that during Makas B'chayres, HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us that ability to have our own existence, to have our own essence. Right? HaKadosh Baruch Hu is coming down. He's going to kill all the B'chayres in Mitzrayim. So there's going to be Gilui Shechina like never existed. So how are you going to have free will? How are you going to have Bechira if HaKadosh Baruch Hu exists or doesn't exist? How do I say anything when HaKadosh Baruch Hu just destroyed the country? So HaKadosh Baruch Hu is like, listen, I'm going to give you something. I'll give you a gift, perhaps even a greater gift than Makas B'chayres itself. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, you know what's going to save your life? You know what's going to save your life? Take a little sheep and take some grass, dip it in the blood, and put it on the doorpost. That will save you. Yeah, I saved myself. HaKadosh Baruch Hu killed everybody, but I put blood on the doorpost. I used grass. Okay, it was grass. That's how we were saved from the. No, not how we were saved. We say HaKadosh Baruch Hu saved us. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, "I'll give you a little space." You know, HaKadosh Baruch Hu comes in, and then we have no existence. Makas B'chayres was Zakta Meshech Chochmah. We don't have HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We didn't have the grass. We didn't have the blood on the doorpost. Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu, when he takes care of you, that then you don't have the ability to say yes, you don't say no. And perhaps that's also what we celebrate on Shavuos. Shavuos, we celebrate the Na'aseh v'nishma. We celebrate the fact that we did take that opportunity to accept what HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to give us. But perhaps also, HaKadosh Baruch Hu took us and said, you're not going to be like anybody in the world. I care about you in a way that you don't have the ability to choose whether you're going to live a life in an amazing world, whether to live an amazing life or not to take an amazing life. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, I'm going to overwhelm you with the evidence until you appreciate this gift that I'm going to give you. And that also is important. And I'd like to add with as we point this out, I think there's one more thing we have to talk about, which is that as amazing and as powerful as this shiur was going to be, it probably is nothing compared to like what Mountain Torah was. Like Mountain Torah was huge. Mountain Torah was something big. It was something that you would think would change your life. But yet, 40 days later, Klal Yisrael makes an egel. Now that's odd. I mean, people fall, but that's an intense fall. That's something that's not normal. We're talking about a Kadosh Baruch Hu kafalei ha'gigas. It was real, right? Whether it was actually in the mountain or whether that it was just so overwhelmingly obvious that the Kadosh Baruch Hu hits us. But then 40 days later, you go make an egel. It doesn't work. So the Mepharshim explain now what happened by the egel. So Moshe Rabbeinu comes down. He says, "Mila Shemei Lai," and Shevet Levi comes in. And Moshe Rabbeinu turns to Shevet Levi and he says, "Anybody who worshiped the egel, we're going to kill." And Shevet Levi does a thorough investigation, CSI, and they find and they kill 3,000 people. So it means in 600,000 people, only 3,000 people did it. And who did it? Which 3,000 people built it? Rashi over there explains that it was the Erev Rav. What happened with the Erev Rav? Right? The Erev Rav were the people who joined Klal Yisrael as they left. The Erev Rav were the people who didn't get to experience the year-long lesson in how much HaKadosh Baruch Hu loves us. Because it's not enough to simply see these things happen. It's very nice to hear a good shiur. It's very nice to have a little silence, but if you don't see it yourself, if you don't experience it, if you don't take that historis and make it real, if you don't do the effort, then it disappears. And that's perhaps one last thing that we have to speak about before Shavuos, which is that Shavuos, hopefully, Mitzvah Hashem, will be a yontif where we'll experience Kabbalah Torah. Will be a yontif where we'll understand the gift that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave to us, the gift that He made it, the gift, what we have as part of who we are, the idea of Kabbalah Torah. But it's only step one. Because the Erev Rav, if you're just watching it as an outsider, it doesn't have the effect. You have to be a part of the experience. You have to say, I want to be a part of something big. I want to accept what I have. I want to get involved. Otherwise, 40 days later, you end up with the Erev Rav, you end up building an egel. Klal Yisrael internalized the lesson, right? And then they spent 40 years in the Midbar internalizing the Torah. They spent 40 years working on that connection with the Kadosh Baruch Hu, working on understanding the Torah. They spent 40 years learning Iyun. I mean, they probably also did some Bikiyas. I'm not against it. But 40 years where they said we need to work on internalizing. We had the big picture. We had the Koilos and the Vrakim. We had the big show. We understood HaKadosh Baruch Hu took it. But the truth is, big shows don't last so long. Big shows are great, and they last for 40 days. If you want to know, what do I need to do to succeed? Right? You know, the first Kabbalah Torah falls apart. Moshe Rabbeinu comes down, he breaks the luchos. Which luchos do we keep? Luchos Shnias. Now, many of you don't even know when we got the luchos Shnias. You know, maybe even know 40 days later, but there's a yontif that we have called Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur comes 40 days after Tisha B'Av. Right? Yom Kippur is when we got the luchos Shnias. Moshe Rabbeinu went back up and brought down luchos. But on Yom Kippur, we don't talk about the luchos. Not one tefillah on Yom Kippur mentions Kabbalah Torah. Not one thing we do on Yom Kippur focuses on the fact that, but the second luchos, the one that we still exist, because it's not about the big show. It's about connecting to our Kadosh Baruch Hu. The secret of Kabbalah Torah is not the big show. The secret of Kadosh Baruch Hu is realizing that it's kafalei ha'gigas, that there's something that exists internally. There's something that exists in reality. There's something that's real that we don't choose whether or not to choose. And that's really the story of Yom Kippur. Kadosh Baruch Hu comes down and we acknowledge that Kadosh Baruch Hu is running the world. That's the secret really of Kabbalah Torah. That's the secret that we live, not because we chose. It's a big schos, and we said Na'aseh v'nishma. But the real Kabbalah Torah is the fact of Kabbalah, of realizing that it's built into us. Torah is life. And we don't get to choose or not to choose. We could choose no. It's fine. Many people are missed out on the connection to Torah. But if you want to live, if you want to appreciate the real life we have, if you want to appreciate that warm embrace when the Kadosh Baruch Hu says, I love you so much that I'm going to build the Torah. You and Torah become one. The big flash is good. And you need the big flash. It could be that the big show is what led into the second show. Of course, the first Kabbalah Torah is the one that maybe the void will exist. But the one that had a kiyum in this world, the one that we connect to, is the little show, the one on Yom Kippur, the one that we don't talk about, the one that we acknowledge deep down our connection to Kadosh Baruch Hu. In fact, if you look at the Chida brings down that was in fact the issue. He said he brings down a different shot. He says why did Kadosh Baruch Hu mark Gigas? He says because the first Kabbalah of Nasa Venishim was doing mitzvahs. The first Kabbalah was great. We're happy to do the mitzvahs. But the second one, where Kadosh Baruch Hu have to force us, because the second one is a little bit more hard. He discussed it. He said that was the Kiyum Torah of Limud Torah. The Shavuos that recognizes the work that we have to do to acknowledge that this is part of who we are. And I wish you all tremendous bracha as we walk away and as we get ready for Shavuos, which is to recognize Kadosh Baruch Hu's love for us, to recognize the gift that we have to connect to Torah. And to realize that just like in the beginning of this year when life was a little bit difficult and as you moved on it got easier, so too the Torah. This acknowledgement that if I realize that what I have is real, if I acknowledge that what I have is part of me, to realize that it's not necessarily free choice, but to realize that I am. And then if I don't do it, I've really chosen to say no. And that's also okay. I see all of you, but Meir Hashem, all of you will realize that I also could choose to say yes. It doesn't have to be the big move. It doesn't have to be chas v'shalom for some of you to say, okay, I'm not going to stay up all night. I don't know if you should stay up all night. I'm certainly not making that choice or that decision. That's each and every one of the individual choice. But to realize that Limud Torah could be an hour, Limud Torah could be a half hour. As long as it's real, then you'll have an amazing Yom Tov. I wish you all Hatzlacha.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Have a good Yom Tov, Rabbi. Thank you.
Rabbi.